best could be. I haven't seen my Super Nintendo since 2003. That's alright, I don't mind. I've got a Switch in the old switcheroo. My friend Mike and Jaymo too.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the old switcheroo where we're talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jaymo. In this episode of the old switcheroo Light Switch, instead of our normal focus on the over 250 retro games in the Nintendo Classics catalog, we are giving our takes on the recent Nintendo Direct focusing on the Nintendo Switch 2. Subscribe or follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen so you can get all the gaming goodness delivered however you like it. So, Mike, you watched the Nintendo Direct. What was your impression?
Um, I think it's interesting to see Nintendo start to make a shift on how they're approaching multiplayer
Yeah.
from what they have in the past. Like we have, I don't know if we've discussed it here or just complained privately that like to use like a voice chat thing with Nintendo currently is have an app and then it has to be a game that allows you to do that.
Yeah.
And that's not all of them. So like it's just easier to go your own route on this. And so to see them, because initially they introduced like we're introducing voice chat, like they've invented voice chat, like it's like that's already a thing. Everybody like
2025.
it's like you are the last people to do this, but then to see them go further and be like, no, and we're making this so it doesn't have to be in a particular game, and we're gonna allow you to share your screen with people. And if you want, you can use our cameras and you can have video in there. And it's like, okay, you guys have gone from nothing to a whole lot.
Yeah, it's
Like,
it's wild. It's 0 to like 100. And I don't know if people who aren't Nintendo gamers realize just how bad the online infrastructure of online multiplayer for Nintendo players has been. Every game you're having to do like specific friend codes within that game, even though you're already friends in Nintendo Switch. Inviting people to private lobby sessions. Like it's very rare that a Nintendo Switch game. I'm not referring to Nintendo Switch 2. I'm talking about the Switch we've been dealing with for the last several years. It's very rare that an online game functioned that well. And I also got a chuckle, but they're calling it game chat, not voice chat, because it really is more than that. I hope, I really, really hope they're smart enough to have some kind of Discord or Twitch integration in the actual hardware itself. Because as you said, the game chat camera is them taking this a step further. It's essentially combining their online multiplayer with a Zoom session. And that's what their actual ads would show. I don't know if you watched the one I put in the Discord, the Annie Murphy Switch ad, where she's literally, this is an official Nintendo commercial, and she's got her Switch and Zoom open on a laptop that Nintendo does not sell next to her. And it's like, how was that the official, like, well, it wasn't the official solution, but we all knew it was to the point they put it in their marketing. Um, and the camera you mentioned can green screen out your background and put you in front of it. So it could do so much for people to make this seamless. I thought that was I thought that was actually way more interesting than I expected,
yeah, no,
and how it
it
works
went
well.
from you've done the bare minimum to actually this is a lot. This is a lot more than I expected.
Yeah. And the fact that also, they mentioned it in a game chat or like a little multiplayer session, you can now share cartridges. So instead of having to convince all my friends to buy Mario Party to play with me, I can buy Mario Party and send you guys all a multiplayer invite, and you can play with me from my copy without you having to buy it. That's
I thought that's only if you're local.
you have to be local the first time. You have to
Okay.
like meet up in person. And then my understanding could be wrong, but my understanding was once you have actually been on the same like Wi-Fi network together, then it's no longer necessary. But regardless, though, even if it's just that, that's kind of huge for gathering like couch co-op sessions and
Yeah, no,
multiplayer
I
modes.
think a huge chunk of this seems like a lot of how they're trying to sort of sell this is not just what the games will be, and the game, but that we're sort of redefining how the gaming experience is. And I think that's an interesting direction to see them go.
Yeah, yeah, and one that Nintendo has lagged behind. It's actually usually the opposite. The games are what set a Nintendo system apart, and the operating system and the functionality of the of the way the system is run is not usually as cool. We get a new Pro controller, but it's basically just with the built-in microphone and then the little game chat thing. Um, Backwards compatibility and the oldest Switch game, Breath of the Wild, getting a new upgrade. What's your feeling on that?
I mean, first of all, the backwards compatibility being present, I think, is good.
Yeah, although apparently there'll be over 100 games that won't run, so people are like upset. But Switch has so many games that 100 out of like 10,000 ain't that bad. Sorry, keep going.
Um, and then it's interesting to see sort of which ones they've decided to give additional attention to. Um, it also be interesting because I think because that's also one of the ones where they have, I think where it's the like they have an enhanced version that you can either buy the enhanced version, or I think on at least I think that's one of the ones where if you have Nintendo Switch Online, you get that automatically,
Yeah,
which is again sort of an interesting way that because Nintendo Switch Online isn't like not priced bad, and we've discussed that before. Like
yeah,
the fact that for a family pack for 8 people is $80 a year
yeah.
compared to some of the other companies where it's like a single person is like $150 a year.
Yeah,
So
like I game on Xbox and it's like $20 a month or something, you know? And so, especially if you have a big group like we do on our Discord and sharing the family code, which you're meant to do. Um and just like the amount of like retro content, like you basically were advertising Nintendo Switch Online when you visited Australia, right? You were
yeah,
informing people, hey, you can play old Nintendo games for like pittance.
yeah, it was a combination of that and some of the other game expansions that included.
Yeah. I was excited to see them showing off the new Joy-Con functionality, the mouse, but also the gyroscopic mouse functionality of it. Because I feel like having it be a gyro mouse. Have you messed around with work and a gyro mouse where it's not on your desk, you're holding it in the air?
No,
They are surprisingly effective. Like it really feels as if there's just an imagined surface in front of you. And I think that we had discussed on our the Nintendo Switch 2 preview, we couldn't imagine the mouse being that effective because like you're on a couch or you're on the bus. Like, what are you really
I
gonna find a surface for it?
I have heard the confirmation that it will work on like a couch or like on pant legs or something from
Yeah.
the Outside Xbox channel on YouTube did a video because they were invited to go to they're based in the UK. They had an invite to go to Paris and try out the Nintendo Switch a day or two ago. And that was one of the things they're explicitly like, we tried it. It works great.
Wow.
Because that was the exact thing was when they pitched that was like, okay, am I going to have a free flat surface convenient to when I'm gaming? And the answer is like, for a lot of people, like, no. It's like, no, it
Right.
worked perfectly well. I mean, in general, or I guess it's a little bit interesting to see how it expands um, games that really work with mice better, like Civilization 7 that they talk about is the kind of thing where like I can't imagine playing any kind of strategy game like that without having a mouse. But then honestly, that's where I'm like, I would play that on a computer because that plus keyboard and the extent that the Joy-Cons work as mice in the sense of having to click and stuff, I think is a difficult sell. The one spot, the only spot in there, and actually this is the only game that they mentioned as like a new game that really caught my attention, was one that used the Joy Cons as mice, which was Dragon Drive, which is the
Yeah.
basketball
The
wheelchair thing, and that was one where I'm like, okay, that I really like that as a concept. It looks really interesting. and it's a situation where that controller usage, like that's taking advantage of using the controllers in that way to do something that like I don't think you could do that in a way that would have worked with
Actually,
anything before.
I thought about you when I saw that because you had talked before on one of the podcasts, a friend one, about the Atari, right? And you mentioned the paddle is a very unique functionality where it's like that motion with that accuracy can't really be done in any other kind of controller. And so now you got the mouse con, and you really kind of need that very specific motion. Um, and I was super stoked because as part of the showing off, what it can do, I think it was their little Nintendo. So you watched it? You remember the Nintendo Switch Welcome Tour, the Switch 2 Welcome Tour?
Yeah, the like intro to the system that we're still going to charge you money for.
Right. Okay. That's what I was like. You were charging me money for the tutorial of how the system works.
Yeah, I have seen the complaint that for everything people are complaining about with that of pricing, it's like that's the one that's legitimate. Like you came up with a thing to be like, here's your intro to the system, but we're selling that, and it's like, okay, that one feels like a money grab in a way that I'm more willing to understand the rest.
Are you familiar with Astrobot?
Only vaguely, and I have heard the point raised that it's like something about that was free.
Yes. So Astrobot is the included game, quote unquote, with the PS5, and it's this little 3D platformer where it shows off what the system can do, but it's also using it to create little in-game, very, very light challenges. But it was super charming, and everyone really liked it. And now Astrobot has a full-on game that is one of the PS5's biggest hits. And so I feel like Nintendo was like, "There's money to be had here. Let's not give this away." I was like, "No, no, you give them the first taste for free, Nintendo. Okay, then they come back for more welcome to it." This is getting weird. So we got to talk about a couple of the other games though. Mario Kart World, the first open world Mario Kart. I think it's neat because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was so exhaustively complete with like over like how many tracks are in that game? Isn't it like over 100 at this
Some
point?
something large, yeah.
Yeah, it's like in triple digits, I'm pretty sure. So it's sort of a Smash Ultimate problem of like, how do you go bigger for the sequel? And so it's like, okay, it's not going to be necessarily bigger, but I guess you could argue that depending on how the game is set up, being an open world kart racer, you have infinite number of tracks because you can race your friends to, okay, first one to the top of the mountain. That's the race now. You know what I mean? Oh, first one to the beach. Oh, hey, let's just, I mean, I don't know. I have not been this excited for a Mario Kart in a long time. Did it grab you?
Not really, actually. And
Ah,
I think it's there. There's two elements to it. One is so much of this is not laps; it's driving location to location.
yeah.
And honestly, there's a especially with Mario Kart and the way it uses items. There's something that about that I enjoy the thing of like you're coming back around. It's like, right, I that's my own banana I put here last time. Dang it. Or, there's now 12 shells in this section. I have to be careful. Like there's this sense that you feel sort of a building chaos out of that. And I think it loses that even levels that I didn't like was on the GameCube, there was one of the levels that was one of the tracks was just like a very short oval,
Yeah, Baby Park.
which I don't like. And because it doesn't screw everything up, I just drive it in reverse and just aim at people head on.
I remember that.
Because it's like, it's gonna end once everybody else is finished anyway. So it's not like and it's like, this is a lot more entertaining to me. So I think for for the kinds of interactions that you have with that, having it no longer be laps to me and switching it to like, okay, we call it 3 laps, and it's really 3 stages in a linear thing. I think that's nothing. And then I think for me, it has kind of lost sort of a sense of being a bit more tightly crafted around this is what you're doing. And so there's so much in there that it and I've had this problem with a couple Mario Karts worth of they're less fun just because I feel like they've tried to have it do too many things rather than do a couple things really well. So things where it's like, okay, well now you can grind along rails, and now we've added food and all this kind of stuff is like, to me it feels cluttering in the way of a bit more of a streamlined feel to the game.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. It's not really as much your kind of racing game. Although I
Yeah.
will point out though, like you said, like the rails, and I was like, I kind of smirked. I was like, okay, Sonic did that a while ago, but I did think it was interesting that the anti-gravity section now you can jump from one anti-gravity surface to another. Because in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the anti-gravity sections didn't really feel like true anti-gravity because there were only certain sections of the track, and when you were on there, there was no real interaction. You were kind of just stuck to the wall until the that portion ended. So it felt less like a game function and more of like a area of track. I don't know if that makes sense,
Yeah,
but
but
in
I
this one,
mean,
it's
Gunstar Heroes did that decades ago.
yeah, that's true. Good callback. Um, I, so the last game I think I really want to hit on is that are you aware of why Duskbloods is such a big deal?
um I'm going to say no because I'm pretty sure I did and then forgot.
It Duskbloods is, for all intents and purposes, a sequel to a game called Bloodborne. And
Okay.
people have been waiting for a sequel for that game forever. And Sony has held on to the rights, clutching it like it's Spider-Man or something. And so there's been no sequel and no, Bloodborne appearing on not even a PC release. That's incredibly rare at this point. And so this is not Bloodborne 2, but same company, same aesthetic, totally Bloodborne 2. So I thought that was a surprise, an interesting surprise. I was expecting to see more new titles. We got Mario Kart, Donkey Kong, Dusk Bloods,
A lot
and
for Mario
Kirby.
Party, which
Yeah.
honestly I watched. I'm like, I don't think I would enjoy these.
Let alone being on camera for them.
Yeah, I think actually it was a lot of like I there's a bunch of people who'd appreciate it. So like I get what they're going for with that, and but where it's like, okay, well now you yell at your controller to do something,
I was already
or
doing that.
the physically perform stuff. I'm like, it does give a neat little like Nick Arcade feel to it, but I'm
Yeah.
also like, I would not like these wouldn't be fun for me, but I get that they're going to be fun for someone.
Yeah. Totally. Um, I hope the system is affordable
Yeah,
whenever we get our hands on it,
yeah.
because that's not looking good.
Part's not. Um, a more positive note with some stuff in there though was what they talked about with the Nintendo Switch Online Retro Catalog, the now Nintendo Classics.
Yay, the rebrand. We can finally stop saying Nintendo Switch Online Retro Catalog. That's like 20 syllables.
Um, Although they went with something that feels too generic in my mind.
Nintendo
Um,
Classics.
yeah, because that's if you say it, it's just like that feels unclear to me. That is generous to use classics on some of the things. Um,
Yeah, we're gonna play Nintendo Classics Flicky on the Genesis.
yeah, it's a little bit disappointing, not entirely surprising that the GameCube edition is just Switch 2.
So stupid. Infuriating.
Um, Although one of the interesting things to see with that is the um, first of all that with that the button mapping is per game. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
and hopefully they do that for all of them, not
Well,
just the GameCube games.
that's the other part to this is so the GameCube they mentioned that specifically. They also I think it's also that on the N64 they are adding that
And rewind. I'm excited.
just a little too late for you for this one.
Oh, yep, yeah. We're about to record our Ocarina of Time episode, and it has been rough on you, boy.
Yeah,
This
and
is the Go ahead.
yeah, so I do hope that that means that because they're actually making adjustments that they are looking at how to improve the existing ones, not simply treating them as out the door. Because especially if they're looking at the N64 thing, the other thing that they need to add to this, the SV modes, so that you can get to multiplayer modes quickly. And I hope, especially if they're going this heavily on how do we get people playing with one another, because that's really, I think they're going with, we get them playing on Nintendo Switch 2 in multiplayer things. It's like, make it easy to get into those.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Um, it Playing online multiplayer on Nintendo Switch Online is not easy. It doesn't matter what game it is. It's been so hard. We got self-driving cars before Nintendo figured out online multiplayer, which was available on the Sega Genesis. But I just, yeah, you're mentioning the Nintendo Classic is kind of a, we've gone from a terrible name to a not great name, I think, because is the app literally going to say Sega Genesis Nintendo Classics? Like that that sentence as it came out of my mouth felt wrong, and that's going to be weird. And I'm surprised that Sega would even like agree to that.
Console wars were
Um,
fought over this.
yeah, well, Sega lost, so you know what?
To the victor goes the naming rights.
There you go. What did they say? Only the weak will fail. There we go. It's been a weird week, everybody. Weird
Yeah,
week. We can all agree to that.
but yeah,
All
it's
right,
good.
Mike, do you have any other thoughts on the Switch 2?
Um, I mean, I think just the other thing that I was slightly surprised, really, with the exception of the wheelchair basketball game, like none of the games really grabbed me.
Mhm.
Um, Partially, I think because it's leveraging directions that don't appeal to me as much,
Right.
or things where I'm just like, I can do this on a PC better. When it's like, okay, we've brought strategy, some of these strategy games to the Switch. I'm like, it's to me those are more suited on PC where I have a keyboard and everything to work and a proper mouse. So I was a little underwhelmed in that sense. I guess the last bit is in. I suppose it makes sense that their final game that they pitched was Donkey Kong,
Yeah.
because that feels like they really are pushing Donkey Kong since we are a month away from the new Universal Park opening in Florida, and like Donkey Kong gets a roller coaster. So like it makes sense of they're trying to sort of make this be a Donkey Kong heavy year.
Yeah, and I'm a little cynical about the redesign. I don't know if you how you feel about it, but you know, a lot of people are kind of salty because it's the Donkey Kong from the Mario movie, which people didn't really love, and it's there's no question about it. They're doing this because Rare owns the rights to the Donkey Kong look we all know and love. And every time they've had to use Donkey Kong, which is all the major Mario games, they're paying Rare to use that likeness of Donkey Kong because Rare created it and they own the rights to it. So, you know, this is a huge money saver if they can get us to accept the new kind of goofy looking Donkey Kong. I mean, I guess he was always goofy looking, but he's goofier. But I don't know, game looked cool. I mean, I feel like Donkey Kong has to share the spotlight with so many weird chimps and grown babies and stuff. So I was excited to just get a straight up Donkey Kong game. I thought it looked beautiful. I thought it looked really fun. But the last thing I wanted to mention I'm excited about is that they showed off the Gyro Joy-Con and they showed off a shooting game and it was being used as a light gun very well. So House of the Dead 2 remake comes out in a couple months. And I think I'm going to be a player on Switch too, because I'm really hoping the House of the Dead remake on Switch is great, except you can't aim. It's a like shooter. You're aiming there's just no stability to it. I've bought so many peripherals trying to get that game to work, but if you listen to my top 20 games episode, you know House of the Dead 2 is literally in my top 20 games of all time. So I'm really, really hoping I have a decent way to play the remake. If there's nothing else, Mike, I think we're gonna call that game over for today.
Yep.
All right. So until next time, remember to like, follow, subscribe to the Old Switcheroo, or rate and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also visit www.theoldswitcheroo.com where you can find links to our social media. We'd love to hear what you thought about this episode or what you'd like to hear in future episodes. Also, be sure to join our Discord where you can talk games, play games, even make a friend or two. As always, thanks for listening to the Old Switcheroo or visiting the website. I already plugged that. We've been talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I've been Mike.
And I've been Jaymo. Game on, everyone.